Welcome to the inner mystery of life and self-leadership. This recording is part of a 12-part series created for those who sense that success without inner alignment feels incomplete. These individuals are reflective leaders, entrepreneurs, executives, and humans in transition. As well, for those ready to cultivate self-leadership as a lived practice rather than a concept. Each conversation in this series is designed to leave you carrying three things with you: a deeper relationship with your inner life, a practical lens for responsibility as responsibility, and the confidence to move forward with clarity rather than urgency. Now, these are not about answers. That is, no answers will be handed to you. Rather, a strengthened capacity to listen inwardly and act with coherence. This is not a recording or a podcast about doing more. No. For a fact, it is a space for becoming more coherent within yourself. And by the way, I am Windsor Lindor, and we continue our journey with lecture 2, Life and the New Year, from resolution to responsibility. What I'd like you to do right now, I like to invite you to take a breath. Allow your shoulders to soften. Let the pace of your day settle. There's nothing you need to accomplish while listening, nothing to solve, nothing to fix. But this time is an invitation to listen slowly, to notice gently, and to allow insight to arise without force. See, as you well know, most people know what to do. They do. However, far fewer are willing to commit to how they will respond when life asks more of them. And what I have realized, when change does not last, it is rarely about intelligence or awareness. It reflects whether our inner structures support conscious response, emotional regulation, and sustained practice. Now, with that in mind, do note information alone does not create transformation. Insight alone does not reshape behavior. Now, if you want lasting change, you must remember lasting change emerges when inner alignment support how we respond in the outer world. So this recording is an invitation to choose leadership from the inside out. Yes, leadership grounded in responsibility as responsibility. Leadership shaped by presence rather than urgency. Leadership sustained through inner architecture. Now, as you listen throughout this recording, you may notice moments of resonance. You may notice moments of discomfort. You may notice moments of clarity. All of this brings us to from resolution to responsibility. Now, as you and I know, at the beginning of a new year, there's this common language, the language of what? Resolution. And it often arrives quickly. It starts this way: better habits, clearer goals, more discipline. Huh. Well, the intention to grow is natural. Enduring growth begins with awareness rather than pressure, correct? Their resolution often focus on outcomes. However, responsibility focuses on relationship. Now, with responsibility, it is the willingness to relate honestly to your choices. Yes, your core values, your patterns, and your inner life. Responsibility. Hmm. Now, if you take a look, and its truest sense is response ability. There is the capacity to respond consciously rather than react automatically. Oh, see, because habits are not rigid routines, for they are quiet agreements you make with yourself. They reveal how you respond when no one is watching. Now, take a look at goals. Goals are not demands placed on the future. Mm-mm. They are orientations that organize energy in the present. Their discipline is not punishment, for it is devotion and motion. Yes, it is care expressed through consistent response. Now, before action becomes sustainable, responsibility becomes personal. Now, if responsibility can talk, or let me go ahead and just say it, with responsibility says, this is my life. These are my choices. I am willing to respond from alignment rather than impulse. So let's slow things down a little bit and then examine responsibility. But do that not as burden, rather as response ability. All right? Responsibility restores authorship, correct? Of course. It returns you to the center of your own life, not through control, to clarity. Now, let's go deeper with responsibility as responsibility. Responsibility is often associated with obligation. From my perspective, and at its core, responsibility is the ability to respond with awareness. It is authority over attention, authority over response, correct? Authority over alignment. So from there, responsibility shifts the internal conversation from, ready? Why is this happening? To how am I choosing to respond within this moment? This shift changes everything. It does not demand perfection, no. It does not require certainty. It does not insist on immediate answers. Well, what does it do? It invites honesty. Yes, honesty creates coherence. Coherence stabilizes leadership. When core values and thoughts and responses speak the same language, decisions feel cleaner, effort feels lighter, leadership becomes embodied. Yes, authority. I am referring to the one that is rooted in conscious response, feels steady. Yeah, that to me does not require force. It does not rely on performance. Hmm. Now, notice what's already present without fixing or forcing. There, take a breath. Allow that awareness to settle, to bring us to inner architecture as structure. For as we move deeper, I invite you to listen for structure rather than judgment. Architecture is not decoration. Architecture is what holds weight. Your inner architecture determines how you respond under pressure, how you think during uncertainty, how you lead yourself when no one is watching. This is not a checklist or to-do list. It is an exclusive invitation to notice, where resilience is the foundation. Yes, resilience is the steadiness beneath your life. It is your capacity to remain present without abandoning yourself. Yes, resilience. For it supports your ability to respond without collapse. It allows engagement without depletion. So this brings us to these questions. Where do you notice steadiness within yourself right now? Where does your foundation feel tired? Hmm? Clarity is framing. Clarity shapes perception. It brings quiet to decision making. Clarity is honesty about what matters. It reduces friction. It organizes attention. So this brings us to these questions. Where does clarity already exist in your life? Where does confusion disrupt your ability to respond calmly? This is where core values are load-bearing beams. You see, your core values hold weight when decisions compete. They guide how you respond under pressure. Now, I ask you, which core value supports you when things becomes difficult? Again, which core value supports you when things become difficult? Where is a core value asking to be honored more fully in your responses? And now, this brings us to emotional intelligence. The good thing about this, in reference to emotional intelligence, is the connective tissue. You see, it creates relationship between thoughts, feeling, and response. It allows response to replace reaction. Now, I must ask you, which emotion has been most present lately? How have you been responding to it? Now, this brings us to purpose. Yes, purpose is the orientation. It is the direction rather than destination. It organizes effort and meaning. So I ask you, what direction does your life currently face? Does that direction still feel true? And how you respond each day? The inner architecture, the one that creates coherence. Coherence supports sustainability. Yes, the practice of being. Strengthening foundation does not require fixing yourself, my friends. It requires meeting yourself. Presence becomes the soil. Awareness becomes the seed. Alignment becomes the bloom. For when life is inhabited rather than performed. Responses become steadier, and leadership becomes natural. And this brings us to this question. Where do you feel most present right now? Where do you notice rushing or disengagement? What would it mean to inhabit your days more fully? Yes, the moral architecture and integrity. You see there, leadership is shaped in quiet decisions, boundaries honored, truths named, conversations entered or avoided. For every response strengthens coherence or fragments it. For a valued life is intentional. Integrity is lived in ordinary moments. But this brings us to these questions. What quiet response has been shaping your life recently? Where are you invited to respond with greater integrity? What does a valued life mean in how you respond each day? Yes, the rhythm of a awakened leadership. Yes, leadership unfolds in rhythm rather than straight lines. Growth is cyclical. Return is part of maturation. See, this rhythm is a relationship to live into. Awareness, acceptance, alignment, action, accountability. For each return strengthens self-trust. Each return depends responsibility. Now this brings us to these questions. Which stage feels most present right now? Which stage feels difficult to remain with? How can patience support this rhythm? See, as coming up to the end of this recording, I invite you to notice what feels different inside you. Not what you understand, rather how you are relating to yourself at this moment. Lecture 2 has invited responsibility to be present or to be experienced as responsibility, not as pressure, not as demand, as authorship, as the capacity to meet life consciously, one response at a time. What often becomes clear here is this: when responsibility is reclaimed, something else quietly emerges. Choice, not forced choice, not urgent choice. Choice with rooted in awareness. From this place, the question naturally shifts. Not what should I do next, rather what is asking to be chosen from alignment. Lecture 3 opens this next layer of the journey. It turns our attention toward the inner conditions that shape choice itself. The ways identity, habit, fear, and desire quietly influence how we decide. The subtle difference between reacting from conditioning and choosing from clarity. As you move toward the next lecture, allow yourself to remain curious. Notice how you respond when no one is directing you. Notice where responsibility feels grounded. Notice where choice still feels tight or rushed. My friends, there is no need to resolve anything yet. But this series is not asking for immediate answers. It is strengthening your capacity to listen inwardly and respond with coherence over time. When you are ready, we will continue. So thank you for listening to the Inner Mystery of Life and Self-Leadership recording. For this recording resonated, allow it to settle before action. Leadership grows through presence rather than pressure. Until next time, be grounded, be aligned, and welcome to the architecture of your becoming.